Welcome to South Texas Now, featuring attorney Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. He grew up right here in the Coastal Bend and became a physician's assistant, fell in love with the law, and became a lawyer. Each broadcast of South Texas Now brings you unique interviews with some of the voices that make a difference right here in South Texas. Now please enjoy this episode of South Texas Now.
And we're back on South Texas Now. You're watching attorney and nurse practitioner Joe Flores, and I have a very special guest. Not only is he a great lawyer, he's a great friend, and he's also a great advocate for people. I want to welcome the number one rated this year by the Caller Times, Robert Heil, attorney at law. How are you, Robert?
Doing terrific, Joe. Good to see you as always, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, Robert, I've asked you this again and again, but this is a new show and we're excited, and I know more about you than a lot of people, but tell us a little bit about your growing up and why you went to law school.
Sure. Well, I grew up originally in Brazil the first couple years of my life. I was born in São Paulo, but moved here very early in age. My mom is from Brazil. I want to honor her on today's show. She married an American guy, and we grew up here in Corpus Christi since 1980. So I went to Windsor Park, Baker Middle School, and Ray. A lot of my amazing childhood memories were here in Corpus. And from there, went to University of Texas, came back to Corpus after law school, and have been working hard, helping people, and fighting the good fight since then.
Well, you and I went to law school and it's been over 20 years, and what a journey it's been. But tell me about what you've been doing lately. I know that especially during COVID, a lot of people have had some barriers,
right,
and maybe even injustice because of COVID. Tell me what kind of law you're practicing and what you're doing to decrease those barriers.
We see what's interesting is a lot of cases that have never been brought before, because up until this thing happened, we didn't know that something like this could happen. Now it's become the new normal, and we've made all the adjustments with masks and social distancing. But the same thing with the law. The law wasn't ready for something like this to happen. So we're seeing a lot of cases of first impression that we've never seen in the history of law before. Some of the calls and cases that we're seeing are people who are being forced to have vaccines, and it's a polarizing issue. They want to get forced to do a vaccine, and maybe they have reasons why they don't want to do that, politically or personal. And so one area that I think is most hot and most relevant now is what's going to happen with these vaccines. Can an employer force you to get a vaccine? Do you have to be vaccinated to go to work? And we're helping, in my firm, we do employment and labor law, as well as personal injury and automobile wrecks. But we're helping a lot of people, nurses, people who work for companies that are mandating vaccines, and they're seeking to get exemptions and to understand their rights. So I think that's one of the hottest areas that's new, and the law is still evolving and changing, and a lot of people are being helped with that.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I have worked cases with you where we have appeared by Zoom. Some of the people are unsophisticated with the technology. They have kids at home. They don't know how to mute it. The judges are saying whoever's making that noise out of the 35 people in my courtroom on Zoom, turn it off. The video, sometimes people are underdressed, they informal, like they're not in a real courtroom.
Right.
I've even seen people say wearing a mask, even though they're on video, they're wearing a mask. So there's a lot of confusion. But the one area that I wanted to talk to you about is personal injury. How are you reaching those people that have suffered devastating injuries, head injuries, spinal cord injuries, 18-wheeler accidents? How do you get these people in that may be in the hospital? COVID's a barrier. You can't exactly go in there automatically. And just to sum up the question, how are you providing legal care to severely damaged people?
Well, I can tell you it's a great question. They're reaching out to us. We're blessed to have won the Caller Times Best of the Best award, as you mentioned. We're honored to have that, because we're doing things a little bit different and we believe better than some of our major competitors. So we're getting people who reach out to us just because they heard that we're doing things well. We charge lower rates, legal fees than most of our major competitors. So that puts more money into the pockets of our client. We have partnerships and relationships with some of the best doctors, the best MRI companies, the best medical treatment possible, so that when clients come through our door, we're comfortable that they can receive the best medical care, the medical treatment possible, which gets them back on their feet quicker and gets them back to work, back to their families. Another reason why I believe that we've been successful and the people who are reaching out to us is because we offer the best customer service. In my law firm, I make it a point of personal importance that I have a direct relationship with that client, and my staff is among the best in the city, if not the state. And we directly work with the client to make sure they get the best results, to make sure that their case is moved quickly and efficiently with the maximum results. And so we kind of pride ourselves on that. And I think one thing that also differentiates us is that we have a strong connection and strong commitment to the community. A part of every case that we settle out of my own personal proceeds, we reinvest into the local community here in Nueces County and the Coastal Bend and Corpus Christi. We've created a program called Kicks for Class, where we're actually putting tennis shoes on the feet of little middle schoolers around here in Corpus at all the middle schools that are participating in basketball, volleyball, football, boys and girls, track, any types of sports that where they wouldn't otherwise have opportunities to participate in these sports. We're reinvesting into the community to enrich it and to make it better and to give kids opportunities that'll keep them off the streets, keep them away from gangs, keep them away from drugs, so that they have a potential to have a great future. So we're doing all those things, and I think that's why people are coming to us and why we're able to help them on those types of cases, and also committed to make the community better.
Well said. And actually, you and I have also represented first-line defenders ourselves on licensing issues from MDs that right now, to my healthcare provider brothers and sisters, I want to say one thing. You are not alone. And I know that the tremendous pressures of life and death and of burying your very own coworkers have driven people that call me, and I handle license issues and first-line defenders that are injured as well. They trust in me and you, since you and I have gone to bat and gone to Austin and fought for these people's licenses. They also call us for personal injury work. The cases that you and I have worked up, I've often thrown in some, we forgot the psychological damages and them not being able to sleep, not being able to be intimate with their partners. All of that, it has a money value. So let's talk about that. When you're in trial and you're asking, you're doing the ask, the hardest thing for a juror to say is that maybe has been injured. I was in a car wreck. Nobody gave me $1. Why should I give Mr. Heil or Mr. Flores $1 million for his client being injured?
I think the key to success on that super important question is that you've got to get into the hearts and the minds of the jurors, because at the end of that trial, you've got either 6 people or 12 people in a jury from our community we were just talking about. They have to make that decision. Was there something wrong done, and how much would be fair to compensate for that? So if you can understand and get into their hearts and minds of what's meaningful and connect to that, everybody has experienced some pain and suffering in their lives. Hopefully most people are fortunate enough to not have been through a traumatic, devastating injury, automobile or trucking accident, that they've gone through something that permanently disables them, that permanently will affect them the rest of their lives. But I've always believed, and you know, because you've been a part of Trial Lawyers College and Jerry Spence in Wyoming and this nationwide group, that if you can show that story and you can relate it in a very true and real way, and you can show those jurors what happened and let them feel the sounds, feel the impacts, feel the effect that it had. They have to be in there in that moment and see what happened, see it for themselves. And then you've got to fast forward to 6 months later when that person might be in a hospital bed or a wheelchair, and you're going to hear the beep, beep of the machine, and you're going to feel the temperature of that room. You're going to understand the pain and the suffering that that person may be going through, not just by telling them they're suffering from this and that and reading it off a list. You're going to get into the heart and show from a truthful point of view, from a truthful reality, what is that person going through. And I think that's a fundamental condition of human nature, that when people see and they sense that truth and you can show that story that's so powerful, then the ask takes care of itself, because they're going to do what's right in that situation. And you can never put a dollar amount on someone's permanent disfigurement or permanent destruction of their life, their inability to have a relationship with their kids. All we can do is try to get some semblance of justice, to give them a little bit of comfort so that they may be able to have some positive things for their life and maybe have those relationships that have been taken away. So it's a real good question, real difficult, but all we can do is ask to make things a little bit easier, a little bit more comfortable for people who've gone through those terrible situations.
Yeah, and often when we pick a jury, there are myths. Don't pick a teacher. Don't pick a policeman. Don't pick an insurance adjuster. Don't pick a nurse. Why? Because they'll become automatic leaders and educators to the jury and maybe taint the evidence. They'll look to them for guidance. Would that be a person that's really hurt when they're deliberating? It's very interesting when we've done focus groups of our own to see what people are noticing. Joe's tie was whacked out, or maybe his belt buckle was a little crooked, or people fixate on certain things, or the judge overruled him too much, so he must be wrong. So it's interesting when we prepare. For instance, we had a very difficult case, you and I, on a physician that we had a focus group, and we actually made him turn into the judge. And then we actually made him turn into himself, but recreated, reincarnated. So we've got about 3 minutes left. I think that we've touched upon the important things, but I want to reserve this time for you. Why should people put their trust in trial lawyers? I know we have about a 15% approval rating. In the last 2 minutes left, I mean, people don't trust lawyers. People think that
it's true.
And people are inundated with car wreck commercials and things like that. Why should they go to your firm? Why should they trust lawyers, period?
I think lawyers get a bad rap for good reason, and it's like any profession. You've got good, ethical, wonderful, committed people in that profession, and then you got some bad apples. And for whatever reason, there's been a negative association with lawyers. And I think that's all centered around the idea that all they care about is the money, and they just want to make money and money and money for its own sake. We were in law school, and I remember asking everybody, why are you in law school? And they were honest. Most of my law school colleagues said, the reason I'm here is because I want to make a lot of money. They would ask me that question, and I said, I wanted to help people. They said, oh, you're a Boy Scout, you're naive, it's just about the money. I said, no, my mom has put this in my family. I come from a generation of people who cared about helping people, politicians in Brazil. My grandfather was a mayor of his little town, Uriksville. My mother always had a heart as a special ed teacher to help people in the community. And those gifts were passed on to me, that I have a sincere desire to help others for its own sake. And I believe when you're doing that, many of those blessings come to you. If you're in tune with what you're supposed to be doing, and you love and you're compassionate and you're ultra passionate and love what you do, then that's where you're supposed to be, and all those other blessings will come financially and otherwise. But the financial isn't the reason why you do it. It's because you believe and you're 100% committed to that idea of helping others, which is, I think, one of the greatest principles and frequencies of the universe. So I'm passionate about that. I'm living that every day. I'm honoring my mother, and we're out there to help others through those very difficult situations on car wrecks, personal injuries, trucking accidents, and commercial vehicles. So that's what we're here to do, and I'm honored to do that.
Well, you've been listening to Robert Heil, attorney at law, a good colleague of mine. Sometimes we work on cases together. If you've got questions and you're watching right now, 361-887-8670 is the number to call, 361-887-8670. And our website is up there. If you've got questions for me, Joe Flores, or for Robert Heil, we'd be glad to help. And I want to take this time to dedicate this show to Sonia Quadros Heil. Thank you, and God bless.
You've been watching South Texas Now, featuring Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. For questions and comments, please call 361-887-8670 or visit floreslawfirm.com.